atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it.
Coming at you from beautiful BC and don't say gay Florida, this is Left of the Valley 2.0. My name is Kevin, and I gave my girlfriend a bracelet from my grandmother. She immediately asked why I said do not resuscitate.
Oh.
Joining me as usual is a team who next doll told them she would rather just stay friends. Guys, welcome back.
Hello, everybody.
This show is brought to you by our patrons. You just go to patreon.com/LATV, and you too can help get a sex doll with lower standards. And you know, if you might as well do that, might as well go to adamandeve.com, use the promo code LATV, help get one of those sex dolls.
Well, it's great for the HOV lane. No?
It is. That's right. Brently, refresh my memory. What do they get if they use LATV as a promo code on adamandeve.com? They get?
Oh, you get 50% off almost any one item in the entire website, and then you also get 3 free gifts: one for him, one for her, and and one for you both. And then there's 6 free DVDs, and then you get free shipping on the whole order. So yeah, you get a lot. You get a lot.
You can finally get that copy of Anal Sledgehammer 3. It's awesome.
That's right. And we're banking for a LATV dildo that's custom made for us, you know. But you know, that's going to take a minute.
Well, no, it's like I've already been called a dildo, so we're already there.
Oh, wait a minute. Is it custom made for us, or are we going to design it and then sell it to the public?
Ooh, that'd be amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can have one for each one of us. You could have the Helen, and then you can have the Kevin, and then you can have the Brently.
It's like the custom guitar, you know, but a dildo.
You know?
That's right.
Yeah. So just go to Adam.
They're going to take a plaster of each of our heads and put it on a dildo.
At the top, yeah.
And we'll be talking to Mike Wiseman in the second half of the show. But first, Dawn, welcome back. You've been gone for the past 2 shows or so. She's been on a bike ride. In case you didn't know, Dawn's an avid motorcyclist. And she was out there riding the airwaves, I guess. Not the airwaves. Right?
Yeah, 1,200 kilometers. It's like 600 and some miles in one day.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she went to next province over. She went to Alberta and to get a motorcycle back. So all right, cool. So welcome back.
Riding so long, you get off the bike, you can't even figure out if you're farting or not. Everything's just still vibrating.
Yeah. Well, you gotta be careful too.
Vibrating from the Harley.
You gotta be careful because you can dehydrate real easy doing that, right?
You actually can. Yeah, like I don't know if you can tell, but you can see the raccoon eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I had some blisters on my lips. I did drink every stop we stopped at. I took a liter water and downed it. But the next day I got up and went to work and I'm like, yeah, this is great. I can get back on my bike. I actually walked in the door and said, good night, honey. And I went to bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and didn't wake up till 5 the next morning.
Wow.
She barely acknowledged my presence. She just walked like a zombie.
I like
a buddy of mine was doing that, and he passed out while he was riding. It was like he got so dehydrated.
Oh no!
Because you'd evaporate. Something about your sweat evaporating immediately or something, and then
it's tricky because you have all the air blowing on you, and it feels it cools you down. But at the same time, while you're riding in your car, you can take a sip or something. While you're riding your bike, you can't really do that.
No,
so,
I was always told. I was always told you can always tell by how happy a motorcyclist is by counting the bugs in their teeth.
I
never heard that in a while.
Yeah,
I definitely had the extra protein on the way.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into a chit chat. Dawn, why don't you start with the story?
Sure. In mango flavored news, Donald Trump faces arrest again and 37 charges related to national security.
Yes, because when you're a criminal, you just let them do it. They just keep indicting you. Grab you by the legal briefs? No.
He didn't know he was being indicted, though. He had no idea.
Enough freaking time to arrest this man again.
Now there's a crooked judge overseeing it, but hey.
Oh, I know.
You win some, you lose
Yummy.
some.
An indictment unsealed Friday details 37 charges against the former U.S. president related to national security for improperly stashing classified documents. showing them off, and then lying to authorities about them. Who would have thought Trump would lie? Like,
Yeah, who would have thought?
He seems like such an honest, just pure soul.
Such a
Don't
moral
forget the empathy.
society.
He's very empathetic of others. He never
He's
thinks of
pure as
himself.
urine, soil, snow.
the potential risk to Trump extends far beyond his 2024 presidential run.
I'm going to say right now, if you guys, I'm sorry, I love you guys down in the South in the U.S., but if you elect this idiot again, I am never going to your country again. I'm done. I'm locking the border down at that point.
Yeah.
No.
I said the same thing when they reelected George W. Bush, but
I've even been trying to get him to go across the border for some Mexican, and he won't do that right now. So it's absolute. If he gets back in, won't happen.
No, Trump gets back in. I haven't been to the States since 2016.
Yeah.
Since Trump was elected, I haven't been to the United States since then. So,
Put simply in the word. Oh, sorry, Helen, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I can't say I blame you. You know, if I wasn't here, I'd be like, go to Canada.
Okay, put simply in the words of Fox News legal analyst digesting on air what he referred to as a damning indictment, a conviction could result in Trump spending his final years in prison.
yes, goddamn.
Yes.
The case before a Florida court accuses Trump of storing secret information on U.S. nuclear programs, military vulnerabilities, and retaliation strategies of the U.S. and its allies, all kept at a property being visited by tens of thousands of people, Trump's Mar-a-Lago dwelling and club.
So, in other words, if you're a spy, there's no way in hell you're in a country, you're China, you're Iran or something like that. There's no way in hell you're not sending somebody to Mar-a-Lago right now, because it seems so freaking easy to get in there. All you have to do is pay a membership, and boom, you're in, and you can just.
He was showing off the documents to anybody that was curious. So he was like, "Yeah, you can totally look at these classified documents about U.S. secret things that we wanted to keep secret, but now here he's handed it out like he was handing out candy. So."
I'm just trying to think of old Soviet spy talking to young Soviet spy, and like the old Soviet spies talked about his James Bond antics and how difficult it was to get information, and the young one's like, I just go to bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, and it's like everything was there.
Reading material.
Yeah.
So they were stored in a bathroom, a ballroom, his bedroom, a shower, and a storage room. Some even sat scattered on the floor, including one document belonging to the Five Eyes, the intelligent alliance that includes Canada. The indictment further accuses Trump of improperly showing these documents to writers working on a book and to an ally in a political action committee.
Oh, God. This is so stupid. Hey, look at that. Look at what I have here. I've got a secret document. I'm just showing off to everybody.
Let's put it in this book so everybody in the world can read it.
Yeah, in all honesty, I'd be more concerned about the empty documents, all the empty folders that were compartmentalized top secret. It's
it's a problem.
Oh yeah, his money's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
In these conversations, federal authorities say Trump explicitly stated that he knew he shouldn't be showing these documents, a potentially incriminating detail authorities use in court. One of those conversations was allegedly recorded. So the breaker of political barriers is about to bust a new one. The first president to be impeached twice. He recently became the first ex-president charged with a crime. On Friday, he became the first ex-president charged twice and the first charged with federal crimes.
And I got to talk to my conservative friends here. This is your guy? Really? This is the guy you guys going to push in 2024? Really? Seriously, guy.
Politically, he's going to drain the swamp. It's like religiously, it's going to make
he's Swamp Thing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, what blows my mind away is when you hear fundamentalists talking about how he's going to put God back in the White House and bring us back, and make God or America religious again or whatever. It's like, do you not look at this guy's backstory? Like,
Yeah.
like there's nothing clean about him. It's like he's just using the religious fundamentalists, whatever, to get power. And
absolutely, it's so incredibly obvious. This guy thinks he's God to begin with. I mean, he thinks he's like God's gift to humanity. I mean, it's so absolutely incredible that the Christians would rally behind this man who represents everything wrong with their faith. I mean, Jesus himself would punch Donald Trump in the face if he saw him right now. Are you fucking kidding me? Turn the other cheek, fuck you, bam. He would punch Donald Trump. I guarantee you.
Yeah, I like the one meme that I saw of what would Jesus do, and the first part shows Jesus walking along the shoreline with Donald Trump, and then the next picture is Jesus holding Trump's head underwater.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Fixing the problem. Yeah.
ABC News reports that the judge assigned to the initial hearing has a history with this case. Aileen Cannon is the same Trump-appointed judge who sided with him earlier in procedural decisions that slowed the investigation until she was overturned and criticized by an appeals court.
Okay, so if you don't know what happens, there's a bit of a lottery, and then they kind of take a draw, and they draw out of a hat, essentially, a name of one of the judge on that court that's going to take care the case on. Aileen Cannon is that judge that, you know, all of the legal machine in the U.S. kind of screeching a halt one time when she decided to side completely with Trump. You know, she's completely bought out, and now she's going to be charged. She's going to be judging on this, which is not good news.
I'm normally not a conspiracy person, but that just seems fishy to me. Like out of all the judges, she comes up twice at critical moments, and the first time it's she acted more like Trump's defense lawyer than she did the preceding judge.
Yeah,
so it's. Yeah,
it's just a coincidence, Troy. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah. It's just a coincidence. They're like creating a perfect scenario that's going to lead to a mistrial to stretch the whole thing past the election. But that's me going conspiracy theorist or whatever. It's I'll get my tinfoil hat for that next time. So,
in other news, you guys know that refrigeration is a great thing. Okay. You know, it's brought so much to humanity. If you think about, you know, the progress and the technology of refrigeration, right? Conserving food and some more. But there are limits to the technology of, you know, conservation and refrigeration. And so it's with great regret that I'm announcing that the science of refrigeration failed when the mummified remains of Pat Robertson at the 700 Club could not be revived. And the world is all better for it. Oh, boy.
Good news, everyone.
Absolutely. So, Pat Robertson, who, after claiming to be visited by the Holy Spirit in Ontario, it's in Ontario this happened actually, here in Canada, cottage country, developed and hosted the 700 Club for nearly 6 decades, binding the ascendant evangelical movement to the Republican Party politics, has died. He was 93. He died way too late. He should have died when he was like 50. Robertson convinced scholars and studio guests that God was working through him to cure their affliction, ranging from scoliosis to hemorrhoids, and he once boasted that his prayers had diverted a hurricane's path.
Meanwhile, when his wife developed Alzheimer's, he left her.
Yeah,
no healing there.
Wow. So the CBN's message, the Christian Broadcasting Network's message, broadcasting internationally, including in Canada, were of personal salvation and biblical inherency with a large dose of criticism of secular trend in society. In 1991, his 1991 book, The New World Order, was put under microscopes, an article for his frequent use of anti-Semitic tropes, as it described conspiracies in shadowy Illuminati figures and globalists to explain much of human history. You guys remember when he was saying, this is as a guy who's at the gym, I laughed so hard when I was listening to Tom and Cecil one time, and they were talking about how Pat Robertson was saying that he was leg pressing on the leg press. He was leg pressing like
2,000 pounds.
No, it's 7,000 pounds.
Was it 7,000 pounds? I read 2,000.
Oh, really? I thought it was 7. I could, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, whether it's 700 pounds, whether it's 1,000 pounds, or whether it's 2,000 pounds, as a guy who's like pressed 1,000 pounds myself, there is no freaking way in hell mummified remains there of Pat Robertson could ever come close to lifting that.
Listen, Kevin, you don't know he had the power of Jesus inside of him. That's why he could do it, because he channeled Jesus, and Jesus gave him the strength to, press whatever fucking amount of money it was.
Bullshit is more likely, but anyway.
That's how it works.
There's nothing I can say about this man except the fact that, kind of like Rush Limbaugh, like nobody talks about Rush Limbaugh today, because same thing, he will not be remembered because he didn't bring anything good to this world.
No.
Yeah, but he did leave a
you and I are normal people, and will have a better impact on this world than this man has had. So I hate to say it, but good riddance. And I'm not even sorry. It's like, you know what? No, he's brought nothing but pain and misery to thousands and thousands of people. There's so many stories of these little old ladies that are watching his broadcast. They're giving away their last $5 to this charlatan, while he's trying to tell them that their picture frame that they got at the thrift store is haunted somehow. It's amazing the amount of harm this idiot has done. And, he's gone.
He said a lot of bad things. The one that really gets to me was a woman called into his show one time and asked why God gave her a sick baby. She had the baby was born sick, was sick for quite a while, and eventually passed. And she's calling in, asking him to make some sort of sense of why God would let something like that happen. His response: "Well, you must have a relative that practiced witchcraft, and you may not know who it is, but it's witchcraft killed your baby." And I was like, what a monstrous thing to say. Not only do you have a grieving family, but here you are making a statement that's just going to further tear it apart.
Yes,
because the mom's going to believe that, and she's going to start singling out people in the family, and every family has a black sheep.
Yeah, and if there's one person that she doesn't like in that family, that's going to be for the prime suspect. And all of a sudden, you just
win.
Yeah, but it's that's not the worst thing he's ever said, but it just epitomizes how what he says has follows, and it causes far more harm than any good, and it doesn't remotely resemble anything like that you'll find in the red letters of the Bible. It's there's nothing Christian about the guy.
No, absolutely not. And I'm not sorry. I'm glad he's gone. I'm just finally life is actually better for him not being here. And, to close this, I guess I'm going to give the quote from Christopher Hitchens. It was a quote about Jerry Falwell, but it works great here as well. And he was basically saying, he was asked if he thinks Falwell was in hell. And he says no, and I think it's a pity there isn't a hell for him to go to. The empty life of this little ugly charlatan proves only one thing: that you get away with the most extraordinary offenses to morality and to truth in this country if you'll just get yourself called reverend. Who would, even in your network, have invited on such a little toad to tell us the attacks of September 11th were the results of our sinfulness and were God's punishment, which Robertson did as well?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
If they hadn't got some kind of clerical qualification, people like that, should be out in the street shouting and hollering with a cardboard sign and selling pencils from a cup. And he's right. He's absolutely correct.
Oh, it's no different than the old Puritans calling people witches. It's just something bad happens. Well, let's find a minority to blame it on. But I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna. Pat Robertson is that. I'm gonna call him. Exactly. Yeah. Moving on. It's all right. Helen, you got a top 10 ready for us?
I do. And I'm going to piggyback off of you, my friend. But if top. All right. So in honor of Pat Robertson, now that he's gone from this world, we're going to talk about his top 10 most cringiest moments.
Oh, apropos.
Very apropos. Well, we're honoring him.
10, we could probably do a top 100.
Yeah. Well, we don't got time for that, bitch. So, number 10, he openly called for the assassination of a foreign leader. In 2005, Robertson offhandedly remarked of then Venezuela President Hugo Chavez, if he thinks we're trying to assassinate him, I think that we really ought to go ahead and do it. It's a whole lot cheaper than starting a war. And I don't think any oil shipments will stop, earning him a rebuke from the U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld himself. Like, wow.
Yeah, turn the other cheek and take that mother FO out.
Yeah.
And just so you know, the only reason why this is at the bottom is because he used to kind of pal around with genociders. So, you know, it's because he hung around with like leftist dictators and kind of supported them. So, you know.
Yeah.
Gross.
Like, dictators like using religion. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to nobody's surprises, number 10, his comments about hurricanes ensign. So it's not true that Robertson blamed Hurricane Katrina on the selection of an out lesbian, Ellen DeGeneres, as the host of a 2005 Primetime Emmy Awards. This is another case of satire run amok, to the point where that fact-checking site Snopes had to debunk the honestly quite plausible story.
That's the point. It's quite plausible. And
but in 1998, Robertson did have this to say to participants at Orlando's Pride Festival, referring to rainbow flags. I would warn Orlando that you're right in the way of some serious hurricanes, and I don't think I'd be waving those flags in God's place if I were you.
Every time somebody tells me that they think the gays cause hurricane, I think, well, they must have a lot of gays on Jupiter, because the entire planet of Jupiter is one huge hurricane event.
If us queers could control the weather, holy fuck! Do you know how many terrible people we'd be sweeping into the ocean?
I was just looking at a positive. Like, every day has a rainbow. So, no.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So I'm just saying, you know, I wish I had that power. Oh, well.
What bugs me
anyway,
is
comments about September 11th. On September 13th, 2001, on an episode of the 700 Club, of course, our friend Jerry Falwell was also on the show. They maintained that God had lifted the curtain of divine protection around America, thereby allowing our enemies to give us probably what we deserve.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jesus. Okay.
The only thing that's protecting the United States is the fact that it's a geographic isolation, really.
Yep.
So, to go on, so this was Jerry Falwell on the 700 Club. He also said that we deserve. Why did we deserve 9/11? Falwell said, throwing God out of the public square, out of the schools. The abortionists have got to bear some burden for this, because God will not be mocked. Before rattling off a list of sinners to blame, the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU. People for the American way, all of them who tried to secularize America. I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen, which Robertson replied, I totally concur.
Jesus.
It's all our fault, guys. It's all our fault.
Yeah. How dare they preach tolerance and acceptance and helping and loving thy neighbor? What kind of filthy hippie would say something like that?
So God is so mad at the gays for being gay that he created that he decided to not appear or do something miraculous, but send some kind of a plane by Muslim agents to take down an economic target in New York. That makes all the sense in the world.
It had nothing to do with America's foreign policy. No.
It had nothing to do with foreign policy. It had nothing to do with what happened in the 70s. All that and private contractors and all these problems that we can don't talk about that. It was the gays.
Yeah.
And the lesbians and the abortionists and secularists and the pagans, all the groups that are not conservative Christians, basically. So, number 7, unfounded homophobic insinuations about judges and their clerks. When the Supreme Court overturned the Federal Defense Marriage Act in 2013, Robertson said the following to Christian Ray lobbyist Jane Sekulow, who would later attain infamy as one of Donald Trump's lawyers. Yay.
Of course.
Let me ask you about Anthony Kennedy. Does he have some clerks who happen to be gays? Dio May.
Clerks that are gays.
Well, they are rather happy.
Gays. Toma had defined marriage for federal purposes as the union of one man and one woman. Sukalo said he had no idea. Robertson's insinuation was aggressively provocative, sure, but still pretty standard, for what Robertson says. And the same changed with Sukalo. Robertson has some thoughts on the overturning of California Prop 8, a state ban on same-sex marriage that passed via ballot proposition in 2008, being overturned by a district court in 2013. Said Robertson to Sukalo, I understand the district court judge there either was an advocate of homosexual activity or was a homosexual, had a wife. There was some connection. Can you elucidate that? And now that's a little bit more colorful. So he was gay and decided to overturn it, but he's obviously has to be gay even though he's married. Yeah, and maybe he's bi. We don't know.
This is like, okay, try to find. This is speak for. Try to find a link that justifies me thinking he's gay somehow. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
If he had a polo shirt with an alligator with a little rainbow, that would have been it. That would have been good enough to make him gay.
In truth, it's just the classic trope of if you defend gays, you must be one, or if it's, or at least that's what I found all the time. Like if you tried to do anything that wasn't anti-gay, then you had to be gay, and that kind of faded out during the 90s. But oh well. Moving on.
To be fair, I mean, like if you do hang around, enough queer people, we do infect you. It just happens.
Well, you hang around enough queer people, and you realize all the derogatory crap that's been fed to you is complete BS and made up, and that they're just normal people with a slightly different culture, and to each their own. So
I remember that joke from a comedian says, he says he loves gay people. He says we should take a gay man to marry a gay woman, let him have a child, and he could have a straight man that can decorate.
I don't think the science is going to work on that one, though.
Moving on. So number 6, everything Robertson has ever said about Muslims and Islam. Everything.
Yeah.
So his bigoted comments against against Muslims date back to well before 2001. But after the 7/11 attacks, he became more vitriolic in his anti-Islam bias, a trend seen in evangelical subculture in general. In 2005, Robertson claimed that Christian terrorism just doesn't happen.
Until he radicalized a bunch of Christian terrorists.
And asserted that of Muslims that those who believe Islam sincerely in theirs are those that think Osama bin Laden is their great hero. And I think we need to recognize that. Painting with a broad brush much, just a little bit.
Yeah. Anybody that's in Islam that thinks that Osama bin Laden was a great hero are just as nuts as any Christian who thinks that Pat Robertson was a wise man.
Exactly. So in 2009, he brought back a Cold War era domino theory, replacing communists with Muslims. Islam is a violent, I was going to say religion, but it's not a religion, even though it's one of the biggest in the world, Pat, but okay. It's a political system. It's a violent political system bent to overthrow of governments of the world and world domination. Adding, I think you should treat it as such and treat its adherents as such, as we would members of the Communist Party and members of some fascist group.
The irony is so thick. The irony is so thick to call Islam a political system that tries to overturn government. What do you think Christianity is trying to do in the U.S. right now?
Right. I mean, it's like the first commandment that they love to put up all on taxpayer-funded property that says, don't have any gods but this one, but the one that is more true than yours.
Oh, God, the irony is so thick.
Well, Brently, it is a religion, worshipped mostly by brown people. So, you can't have that. It's just silly.
Well, it's still just another. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Number 5, Robertson's definition of feminism. Oh, this will be yummy.
Oh,
Well, first, Helen, you shouldn't even be talking right now.
Sorry. Does somebody else want to read it? I'll defer to the men on the panel, okay? Yeah. So, but thank you for letting me have a voice. Thank you. So, even respectable evangelicals like Russell Moore have called feminists outright heresy. But in 1992 Christian Coalition fundraising letter, Robertson made feminist sound absolutely epic by describing it as follows. The feminist agenda is not about equal rights for women. It is about a socialist, anti-family political movement that encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians.
That's it. That is
feminism is about turning women into witches to leave their husbands and become lesbians. I love it.
I'm like, I haven't killed my kids, and I haven't left. I did practice witchcraft. I have practiced some lesbianism in my life, and I do want to destroy capitalism. So, 3 out of 6, pretty good.
I'm still shocked. I saw one video of where he blames a woman calls in about her husband cheating on her, and then he blames her for not being pretty enough or keeping her husband happy.
God.
And it's like, really, that's like straight out of Shiny Happy People. Like it's
yeah. Jesus.
It's all our fault. Listen, if your husband's a dickhead, it's our fault.
Yeah.
It's our evil vagina magic. That's the way it is. So anyway, calling non-Christians.
And if you too want vagina magic, to go to adameve.com. Use promo code LATV.
Right. If you want to have evil vagina magic, please go to adameve.com. Use promo code LATV and get 50% off one item, 5 DVDs, and toys. So you'll get stuff.
You get an evil.
You'll get stuffed.
You'll get stuffed. You'll get stuffed and stuffed.
Get stuff. Okay.
You will get stuff to get stuffed.
Okay, I thought it was like get stuff. Like you just keep on throwing magical crap in there. That's.
So, number 4, calling non-Christians termites who don't belong in government. That's nice. So, in his 1991 book, The New World Order, Robertson wrote, When I said during my presidential bid that I would bring only Christians and Jews into the government, I hit a firestorm because it's unconstitutional, Pat. Yeah. What do you mean? The media challenged me. You're not going to bring atheists into the government? How dare you maintain that those who believe in Christian values are better qualified to govern America than Hindus and Muslims? My simple answer is yes, they are. Wow, Pat. Wow. Wowie. Wow. It's telling that Robertson failed to add the faux inclusive prefix judo to his call for Christian values in government. It is not, however, surprising, given that Robertson called non-Christian termites in 1886, claiming the great builders of our nation almost to a man have been Christians, because Christians have a desire to build something. He is motivated by love of man and by God, so he builds. The people who have come into our institutions today are primarily termites. They are destroying institutions that built by Christians, whether it's universities, governance, or our own traditions. And I think he failed to leave out that a lot of our institutions were built on the backs of slaves. So he kind of left that out.
The funny thing is we could almost make an actual case where the opposite is actually true. I remember this interview that David Smalley had one time when he was talking to a police officer. And he says the police officer was like a very serious Christian, He says Smalley told him, he says, "Here's my problem. You actually believe that a literal man had a conversation with an actual donkey in the Bible, Balaam's donkey and all that stuff, and you walk around with a gun. You see where I'm kind of concerned here? No, and that makes all the sense in the world for me because it's the same thing, You actually believe that some kind of boat flooded the entire earth. And, all the animals went on having some kind of a cruise. And you were pulling the levers of power in government. Really? I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, the irony is a little thick.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. So I'm in my top 3. Calling for terrorism against the U.S. State Department, Robertson in 2003, suggesting that a little good old-fashioned terrorism might improve U.S. foreign policy. Maybe we need a very small nuke thrown off of Foggy Bottom to shake things up, like Newt Gingrich wants to do. What didn't he say that U.S. terrorism doesn't happen?
Christian terrorism doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't. No. Robertson in 2005, alleging that Christians don't commit acts of terrorism. You don't hear somebody, Christian extremists killing film producers, Christian extremists blowing up trains. It just doesn't happen. Make up your mind.
They blow up abortion clinics.
Come flip flopper. Well, it's only when it suits his narrative, basically.
Yeah.
You pick and choose. Claiming that gay men deliberately spread HIV using rings that cut people.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
It's a joy buzzer of death.
Over the years. Wow. Over the years, Robertson has displayed a typical evangelical unhealthy fixation on other people's sex lives and on homosexuality in particular. In this connection, Robertson has trafficked in some highly imaginative alternative facts.
Yeah.
On a 2013 episode of the 700 Club, Robertson claimed that members of the gay community in San Francisco want to get people so if they got the stuff, they'll have a ring. What? You shake hands and the ring's got a little thing that will cut your finger. He wasn't joking, and he went on to describe the completely made up phenomenon as vicious stuff and the equivalent of murder. Of course, telling such as outrageous lies about the LGBT community is truly vicious stuff.
Yeah.
And number 1, Hades' deal with the devil. Okay, so let's get into some racism. Not that we weren't there before, but let's get into some blatant racism. That's what Pat Robertson did after Haiti. Okay, so after Haiti's devastating earthquake in 2010, which Robertson attributed to a curse tied to the malevolent spiritual forces that help, of which he assured 700 Club viewers, Haitian slaves overthrew their French colonizers in the late 18th and early 19th century revolution. The clear subtext is that people of African descent couldn't possibly have fought for or gained their independence without some help from Satan himself. This is what he actually said. I'm going to go. And you know, Christy, something happened a long time ago in Haiti, and people might not talk about it. They were under the heel of the French, you know, Napoleon III and whatever, and they got together and swore a pact to the devil. They said, "We will serve you if you'll get us free from the French." True story. And so the devil said, "Okay, it's a deal," and they kicked the French out. You know, the Haitians.
Did they get that notarized, or that pact with the devil? It's like, is it in the public records? No,
it is. Yeah, they got themselves free. But ever since then, they have been cursed by the one after the other, desperately poor. That island of Hispaniola is one island. It's cut down the middle. On the one side, it's Haiti. On the other side is the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic is prosperous, healthy, full of resorts, etc. Haiti is in desperate poverty. Same island. They have to have, and we need to pray for them, great turning to God. And out of this tragedy, I'm optimistic something good may come. But right now, we're helping the suffering people, and the suffering is unimaginable.
Yeah.
And more recently, he has called critical race theory a monstrous evil designed to give people of color the whip handle so they can be the lord over white people.
Yeah. I kind of want to throw in an honorable mention there is the Las Vegas shooting back in 2017. Yeah. 60 people murdered, over 400 hospitalized.
One that I actually knew.
Yeah, and you'll be... Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But it's like his reasoning for it. People were disrespecting Trump. Like America isn't respecting Trump enough, and this is what happens. And it's like it's
so wackadoo.
Yeah, you know what?
Really it's disgusting.
To put
Everything
a cap
he
on
said
this.
Was disgusting.
To put a cap on this,
I would like to say, good fucking riddance.
Yeah. To put a cap on this, I when I heard his death, I smiled because you know what? I said, good riddance to this man who died in the month of Pride.
I know.
Of gay pride. How fitting of an end for such a
checkmate
I
atheist. There is a God.
Pride gods. Thank you, Pride gods.
I almost want to
Thank
believe
you.
in karma. All right. Brently, my friend, you got another brilliant moment for us.
I do, yeah. So I don't know if you all have been keeping up with all these cancellations that the Christians have been doing. They're like freaking out about everything, mostly about trans people. You know, that seems to be, and anybody that supports them, any company that tries to sell them something, they get they get their little boycott group together, and it actually has been working, which is really unfortunate lately. It took out they took out Bud Light. You know, they dropped their stock by a shitload, and then they went after Targeted, and the person who was selling the clothes, this awesome person, by the way, is a Satanist, and they were selling clothes. One of which I'm gonna have to get. It shows a unicorn on it, and it says "Not today, Jesus," and it shows the goat head, and it says "Not today, Jesus." I gotta get it. It's awesome. But and so this person, they ended up firing them because they all freaked out about Target, saying their Target is targeting their children for Satanism.
Yeah, even Target in Canada, pulled all their LGBTQT clothing stuff because of this complaint, which is a reason not to shop.
I am wearing, by the way, Target Pride merch right now.
Hell yeah. It's like one of the only places that you can get it that's like a normal store, you know. It's like,
I love rainbow capitalism.
Hell yeah. But so now it's kind of funny. So they're all drunk on their own power at this point, right? And there was some behind the scenes footage of the show The Chosen, which is like their favorite show. It's a show about Jesus. It's actually doing pretty good in the ratings and everything, and it got signed on for a third season. And there was some like little behind the scenes footage, right? And it showed the cameraman go by. It's less than a second. I'm not even kidding. And there's a pride flag on the camera, and as he moves from one spot to the other, and then it goes right out of the frame. It's less than a second. And they called to cancel The Chosen now. So they're taking themselves out. It's like they're literally allowed to do nothing now. They can't drink Bud Light. They can't shop at Target. You know. Oh, and I saw now they're also going after Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A had a. I know. I was like, cool, man. Take them out, idiots. Do it because they have a what is it called? The inclusion, equality and inclusion department. I think it's DEI or something like that. The Department of Equality and Inclusion, just so that employees know how to treat people of color, basically, and people that don't have your culture. It's just, hey, here's some things that are offensive that you wouldn't think of, if you're a white guy.
Asshole.
Yeah, but
it's don't be an asshole department.
Yeah, we need to tell you this so we don't get sued for wigs.
Right. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, because it's like culture shock a lot of times. They just don't know that this stuff is harmful to other people, and then you end up doing it. But yeah, so now they're going after them and The Chosen. They're just like eating their own tail at this point. So I thought that was kind of fun. A story,
it's reminiscent of what Troy was saying on the show a couple of weeks ago when he was doing the Salem witch hunts. This is how it starts, right? You accuse a witch, and then you have her name 2 more witches, and then so you're eating yourself eventually. And this is what they're doing, right? Yeah. Oh, you fly here. Well, we're going to boycott that one, and then they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah. What I was thinking the other day, though, is like when I look back through my entire life, I can't think of a moment when the fundamentalists weren't attacking or afraid of somebody or something. Like, they always have to have something to keep them triggered, angry, and afraid. So,
what was the last time you saw like really, really happy Christian people? I mean, like they're not afraid of anything. They're just loving and accepting of everybody. What was the last time you saw that? I've never seen that in my life.
At a Pride event, there was a Christian person at a Pride event.
You saw the one guy.
Yeah, but they didn't. That's not fundamentalist.
So, I'll give points to my mom.
Yeah, well, Catholicism is also a lot more moderate compared to fundamentalism, and there's lots of like Christian, like moderate forms of Christianity out there that they focus their faith inwardly, and they can be happy because of that. But it's unfortunate that those aren't the Christians that people take issue with. It's the bigots, it's the fundamentalists, it's the nationalists They're the ones that are trying to ruin it for everybody else. But
yeah, it always kills me when people are like, "Oh no, it's I have a personal relationship with Jesus." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because it sounds like you have a public relationship with Jesus. It's not personal. This is like personal. You should be shutting the fuck up about it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Excellent. Anything else on this, Brently?
Oh no, just that so far. Just Chosen and Chick-fil-A, and I'll keep you posted for the next thing of their own that they ruin.
That's sweet.
Yeah, some good news. Lots of good news this month.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's not too bad so far. It's a good June month. All right, Troy, you got a truth, myth, or balderdash for us?
Alrighty, this month I am covering the life and death of Pope Joan. Being Pride Month, I tried to find a myth that was kind of on theme. So the best I could come up with was a cross-dressing pontiff. Whether or not you think the myth is true depends on your religion, if any. If you're Catholic, this is fake news started by woke communist lizard people. It never happened, and Catholic records show it, even though we used to think it was true.
The Catholics are the lizard people, by the way. That's projection right there.
Yeah,
they are the lizard people. Come on now.
Yeah, but if you're if you're Protestant, though, it's the Catholics just whitewash history, and we have books at our fundamentalist bookstore to prove it, and the fact that they'd also gin up the fact that if a woman became pope, this proves the Pope isn't divine, and all the other nasty things they say about Catholics.
How is a woman becoming Pope proving that the Pope isn't divine? How does that happen?
Because
women
evil
can't
vagina
be
magic,
divine.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Evil vagina magic.
You're about the evil vagina magic.
I do
Yeah,
cover
like
that
it
later,
now.
but either way, if you're an academic historian, though, you're like, yeah, that never happened. There are the only records are third-party accounts, came centuries later, and the narrative clearly evolved over time until the time of Reformation, where it was significantly changed to become anti-Catholic propaganda. Historians claim there are several origin stories, but we can briefly go over that later because I'm trying not to go late again. Now, Pope Joan is relatively still a popular myth. We still see books, plays, pop culture references, and it even has 2 movies loosely based on the legend. The legend itself claims that in the Middle Ages, a woman called Joan ruled as Pope between the year 855 and 857, between the reigns of Pope Leo IV and Benedict III. But there's also several different timelines depending on which myth that you're following. Our story starts out with a boring backstory of how Joan grew up and how when she was older, she found some summer lovin' had her a blast. But there was a twist. When she discovered her love was heading off to school in Athens to become a priest, her love story hit a wall. So first question, and I'm pretty sure this is an easy one. What did Pope Joan do when she heard the boyfriend was leaving for school? A, got her brothers to beat him up for playing her. B, spread a rumor that got him kicked out of school. C, locked herself in the bathroom and after a couple days of crying, burnt all his stuff. Or D, got super clingy and demanded that she go to school with him.
Well, yeah, I think that's she went to school with him essentially.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
That's it. She insisted on coming to school with him, but since book learning was men's work back then, the only way she'd be accepted at school was to dress up and pretend to be a man. If you're wondering why they had such rules, like Kevin was earlier, well, in 1 Timothy 2:12, it says, "Suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over a man, but to be in silence." So it basically means keep them subservient. And that didn't mean it.
I'm going to mute Helen and Dawn just for that. Here.
Yeah, guys,
you got something to say? No, you can't say anything. I'm just muting you.
More or less, their reasoning was because God said so. But
God said so. It's not me, man. Don't blame me.
We're not misogynistic pricks. It's right there in the Bible. It's like we're doing God's work.
Pat Robertson would prove.
Yeah, exactly. Truth, myth, or balderdash.
Pat Robertson and I prove this message.
Truth, myth, or balderdash. It turns out the reason why men didn't want women to learn was because they'd just make them look stupid. Because Joan ended up being the top of her class and a cleric, eventually becoming an accomplished scholar and teacher.
Nice.
Oh, that sounds true. Well, in reality, that would probably be the truth, but it's yeah. Okay, I'll go with truth.
Yeah, it's true, or at least according to the myth, it's true. It's she was so smart. She was invited to join the papal court in Rome and tutor powerful clerics and aristocrats. She did such a pardon me. So she pretty much proved that Paul, or whoever wrote First Timothy, was totally full of crap. Joan's intelligence even got her the eye of the Pope Leo IV, and her career got fast-tracked after that, eventually becoming a cardinal, which is kind of a big deal, and the Pope's closest advisor. Okay, truth, myth, or balderdash. While attending a special Easter service, Pope Leo IV got trapped in the siege of Paris, where he was killed by Danish Vikings after he got shot twice with arrows.
Ooh,
On his
nice.
deathbed, he named Joan as his successor.
Well, I'll say.
Ooh.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, I think
I'm going to
that's.
go with truth just because I want it to be true, because that sounds epic.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, normally I'm inclined to say true, but that's not how popes are elected today. But back then, maybe it was. So I'm going to say balderdash.
Yeah, it is balderdash. I completely made that one up, but you'll notice by adding a few little tidbits of actual history, it sounds completely plausible. So and which is pretty much how most of the Bible works. But either way, now the Pope did end up dying, but as per papal tradition, like Kevin mentions, her being Pope was the cardinal's decision, and they decided Joan was the best man for the job. Unaware, she was actually a woman identifying as a man in an all-male sport. Oops, I mean religion. But either way. She was able to reign as Pope for over 2 years, but when she developed a belly bump, things got a little bit complicated when people eventually figured out something was up when the Pope turned out to be pregnant and during a papal procession gave birth in the middle of the street. So, multiple choice.
Oh.
Yeah. So, how did the Christians react after seeing the Pope give birth to a baby in the middle of the street? A, since she died in childbirth, they were like, see, God will get you. B, we're like, judge not lest you be judged. Besides, she's proven herself to be a fully capable Pope, and that's what counts.
That's
Or
wrong.
C,
Yep.
yeah, or see, holy crap, a man just had a baby. It's a miracle. Hallelujah. Or D, she was bound by her feet and tied to a horse's tail and stoned to death while being dragged through the town.
That's that one.
Yeah, that makes more
That's the
sense.
one.
That's about
The
right.
history of Christianity, yeah.
Yeah, the answer was, of course, D. They totally lynched her with zero mercy. FYI, in other versions of the myth, A would be acceptable, as some versions have her dying in the childbirth. Others have her being sent to a convent. Poor Joan, though, was dragged for half a league, about 1.5 miles through the town, while being stoned to death and buried where her corpse broke free of the horse.
So awful.
Jesus.
Yeah. Truth, myth, or balderdash. Joan was buried on what was known as the Sacred Way, stretching from the Colosseum to St. Clement's Church. After her murder, the road became known as the Shun Street, and preceding popes avoided walking on or acknowledging the street.
It's the original walk of shame there.
Pretty much.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I'm going to say true.
I think that's true as well.
Yeah, it's true, at least according to the myth, is true. But actually, you know what? Sorry, I kind of went off script. It's a myth. There's no additional writings validating the myth. But there was said to be a plaque placed on her grave that read, "O Peter, father of fathers, betray the childbearing of the woman Pope." I'm just mentioning that because some historians think that religion actually came from this plaque, suggesting the original plaque was vandalized and made to say this, with a few changes to the Latin to mock the Pope as Phinemon, and the myth grew from there.
Oh.
Some other historians believe the original legend was based on Pope John XII, who had a mistress, including one named Joan, who was very influential at the time. Or another one is of Pope John VIII, who was secretly a woman and was who Joan was based on. Now, if you're wondering why they didn't just make the story called Pope John VIII, well, that's just how apologetics roll. There's a few other theories too, but yeah, they're boring. So moving on, truth, myth, or balderdash. To make sure something like this never happened again, the Catholic Church created a special chair where the most junior deacon would check for or grope the Pope's holy testicles.
I've heard of that. I've been hearing that for a long, long time. It's urban legend now. I don't know if this is true or not. It's crazy enough to be true because we're talking about
the poor guy. What happened to his genitals?
Yeah.
No, there is because of that quote unquote female pope. Apparently, there is a rumor that's been going on that they're checking to make sure this doesn't happen again. Check to make sure he's got the package.
Jeez, we're instituting that sort of thing down here in Florida quite a bit.
Yeah, they're doing that in Florida now for school teachers.
Yeah, I believe they call it the Holy DeSantis chair now.
Exactly. You dropped your pants on the way into school, but drag queens are sexualizing children. That's what's.
I know the Catholic Church has a lot of weird raise your eyebrow tradition, so I'm going to take a chance here, and I'm going to say that's a myth.
Yeah, it's balderdash, but it's still part of the myth. There is a chair.
Both, man.
Yeah,
okay.
There is a chair that there's an actual chair that this myth is based on, and it does exist. It's called and I'm gonna butcher the Latin here, the Sedus Stercoria, aka the dung chair, perhaps because it resembles a toilet seat. But it turns out there's no records of any such ceremony taking place. There is mention, however, of 3 chairs used during a humbling ceremony, and the dung chair was one of the chairs used. Another claim, which is my favorite, it's a repurposed toilet seat donated to the church by a church father, but this is possibly just based on a bad translation.
So holy toilet seats, a holy shit thing.
Yeah, exactly. Holy shit. Wrapping things up, the story of Pope Joan was accepted as true for centuries until the Reformation movement came along, and it was rebranded to defame the Catholic Church. So the church started to deny the myth ever happened. So let's end with a multiple choice. In the 14th century, a series of statues were built for the cathedral in Siena, Italy. And Pope Joan was included in this collection. Later, in the 17th century, after the myth was rejected, Pope Clement VIII ordered the statue removed. What did the church officials do in response? A, took it down because you don't want to see a medieval pope get angry. B, boarded it up with a fresco. C, gave the statue a breast reduction and masculine features. D, donated the statue to the British Museum, as England was rumored to be the birthplace of Joan.
Did the masculine features, didn't it?
Well, I don't know how you would do that to a statue in the 14th century. I mean, it's not like you can start putting plaster or you start chiseling it down. Although I believe it did that, right? Take all the penises off the statue in the Vatican. I think it was did that.
And they put pants on David.
Put pants on.
Yeah,
they had to remove the statue at the very least.
Yeah. Brently was right. The Catholic Church provided Joan a gender reassignment sculpturing. They ground off her breasts, removed the baby, changed a few features, and called her Pope Zacharias from the 8th century. Oh, and
all the other popes are mocking Zacharias. Ah, you were a girl.
Yeah, congratulations, Zacharias, on your transition.
We'll even name him Zacharias, so that way they really
So that's pretty much in closing. If you're wondering what happened to her baby, One myth, he grew up to become Bishop of Ostia, who later entombed his mother in his cathedral. This is from a happy version of the ending of the story, or whatever, because nobody wants to hear about how the baby was. I messed that up. Either way, in most myths,
in another version, he became John Wick.
John Wick, yeah,
That's right.
revenge. No, but in most versions, the baby was stillborn and died before her mother was lynched. So it's a happy ending. if you're a monster,
if you're gonna drag a woman behind a horse that just gave birth, chances are they would have killed the baby too.
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, but pro-life and crap. So
Yeah. God's in charge of all this stuff.
we don't
Perfect
listen.
God.
The Catholic Church doesn't like to talk about all the times they murdered women and babies. That's just wrong. We have to now talk about we have to be pro-life because it's for the good for the mother and for the baby. Blah, 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 blah.
It's like that. It's like that Norm Macdonald joke. Where he's like, I was looking through history, and turns out the good guys have won every single war ever. It's crazy.
Amazing, isn't it? Oh, thank you so much for that, Troy. Let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be with Mike Wiseman of The Bible Says What? So stay with us. All right, our next guest is a returning champion, Mike Wiseman, host of the podcast The Bible Says What. He's a snappy dresser and a sassy dancer. Michael, thank you so much for being back on the show with us.
Absolutely. Yay. Thanks for having me
Mike,
back.
how are you doing?
Let's put him front and center.
Oh, man. Oh, good. My hair out.
Wow. Mike, you've been on the show before, of course, and we always love having you on the show. But for those of Mike, I've forgotten or never heard you before on the show, we always have new listeners. Give us a quick bio as to who Mike Wiseman is.
Oh, man. Mike Wiseman, he does a show called The Bible Says What? It's a weekly show, atheist versus Christian conversation style debate show. It's YouTube, TikTok, all those places.
Well, that would explain also why you don't have any more hair, my friend. Atheist debates every week with Christians.
And I have children. That's a double whammy.
Oh, man. So, in case you guys have never seen the show, The Bible Says What, I highly recommend it. It's fun. It's entertaining. Mike, what was the genesis of that? How did you come up with the idea of, you into S&M or something? Why
I love the conversation. It's always interesting. No two pastors are the same. They always have some kind of excuse for it. There's always something they have. I guess it started with I loved the debate style, but I hated the debate style. So it was I wanted more of a conversation, and I always liked the back and forth at the end of these debates, but they never lasted very long. So I kind of decided, well, I'm going to start talking to these pastors about the things that I've learned while reading the Bible. And there's some pretty fucked up shit in there. So I wanted to ask some pretty serious questions. Why is this here? Why did God do this? Why didn't he do that? And that's kind of where it stemmed from. And I was having these conversations anyways. And the wife says, why don't you just make a podcast? And it's like, well, crap. Now I have to make a podcast. So I just put the conversation on there, and then the show kind of evolved into what it is today. And now we've got intros, outros, Easter eggs, and guests every week, returning guests. I mean, people actually come back, which is weird. Do they like the punishment? I don't know. But it is a lot of fun.
You tell us that you're returning.
Nothing I'd rather do on a Sunday morning than hang out with you guys. That's for sure.
So
I feel so bad. Thank you.
Because you're actually getting them to question the shit that they just kind of took for granted, and they're like, nobody else asked me these questions because they're all in fucking echo chambers.
Exactly, and it's very fun to see the reaction when I come up with a really tough question, like Hosea 9:16. God says, "I will slay your cherished offspring." Why would God say that? Doesn't sound very loving, does it? Just things like that, and they stutter and trip over themselves, and it's always fun. I love it.
It's so funny, when you were on my show the last time, we went over Job. You were talking about Job, right? And you were like, "Hey, man, there's a part where God actually admits that he fucked up, right?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Man, I'm so I regret what I'm doing. I did the wrong thing because the devil tricked me." And I took that part and put it as a short, right? Holy shit, the comment section went crazy, man. That was probably the most loud comment section I've ever had. The most cap locks, anyway. That's bullshit. No.
Those Bible verses tend to get that reaction from Christians. It's really funny.
Yeah, I know when I was Christian, I had trouble reconciling like Job or whatever, because like you read the story and it's like, and it's all of a sudden like God and the devil are drinking buddies having a game of top this one. Yeah. And it's just like, I thought these guys were enemies. Meanwhile, they're like hedging bets on a human life.
On something God should have known to begin with. Which is, there's so many things wrong with Job, and Christians always go back to Job. Oh, and Job, and no, have you read that? Do you understand Job? Like, let's go through it together. Let me hold your hand.
Give us a quick synopsis there of Job, because I know a lot of people, we know Job and all that, but listeners might not necessarily know the book of Job, which is the oldest book in the Bible, by the way.
Yes.
So, let's do a quick synopsis of what Job is.
Quick synopsis, Satan, or the antagonist, whoever he is, decides to show up. He starts asking God, hey, how's it going? I've been to and fro. And God's like, hey, have you seen my buddy Job? He's so cool. He's so cool that no matter what you do to him, he's still going to love me. Well, and then Satan's like, or the adversary, whoever he is, because I guess Satan wasn't actually a thing at that time yet.
Yeah, he came later.
Yeah, which is always fun. Christians interjecting more shit,
Yeah, it gets curated.
But my favorite part of the whole thing is, God gives him permission to destroy his family, his crops, his servants, everything. God kills. God allows Satan to kill. But my favorite part of the whole thing is Job 2:3, when God realizes what's going on, he goes, and he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. So God realized what the shit just happened. He's like, crap.
And just for everybody, that's a really candy-coated version of what God did to Job. It's he had toils, he got beaten, he attacked by dogs, his house fell down and killed his family.
Wi-Fi was out of whack.
The God in that story sounds a lot like the God from our skits that just gets tricked by the devil all the time. That's very similar.
Very incompetent.
The mind-blowing part, like another part that's really hard to reconcile, is like how they give it a happy ending of how God gives everything back to Job. It's like, what? So he brought his family back to life? No, he found a new one.
That's what you
those
do.
Kids.
But he had 7 times.
2,000 years ago. You lose your family, you just go get a new one. It's like, it's like replacing your toilet seat.
Yeah, another one. Let's grab one.
Like the comedian Russell Peters, who was Indo-Canadian father, used to say that. He used to put that in his sketch. Well, if he dies, we'll just make a new one.
Oh man. Yeah, and then throughout the whole thing, the rest of it, after he realizes he screwed up, he just all about, well, I'm God, don't question me. Were you there when I created this? It's like, wow, dude, calm down. You fucked up. Let's just admit it and move on.
Yeah. So God's taking his points from Ken Ham, is what you're saying. Were you there? Were you there?
You ever seen turn into a person? Huh?
So your guests come on, and you have reoccurring guests. So I guess they're glutton for punishment as well, or are you just coming back to try to persuade you that they were right the first time?
Sometimes, yeah.
They have fun though, right? You can hear that they have fun. I think a lot of times.
I do have guests that actually enjoy themselves. And we do have good conversations, and it's respectful, and it goes back and forth. But every once in a while, I get those people that they read the word Bible in my name of the podcast, and they're like, yeah, I love Bible podcasts, I'm gonna go on that podcast. And I'm like, make sure you read it, here's the links, blah blah blah. And they come on and they have no idea.
I've heard episodes where the person was like, oh fuck, what did I get into? oh fuck.
Well, you said you read the Bible,
and then you're a blasphemer and you're a bad person. You trick them. You're
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Trick
They
them into
did
getting there.
No, you told them, please, watch the clips, make sure you understand where you're going, and
Yeah.
it's your
Hey,
fault.
who can do effects right now? Let's put some horns on his face right now. Let's put like a couple of horns on your head. The trickster, Mike Wiseman, the trickster.
We have a
Devil
real
filter.
low
Yep.
budget special effects department. Can you just do this for us?
We'll just all do devil signs. Devil signs, everybody.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. Perfect.
Or if you're
Oh, you're dark.
if you're a USF alumni, go Bulls!
Michael, did you ever regret not being capable of inviting Pat Robertson to your show?
Oh, if only that would have been great. He would have just dodged every question I threw at him, and just no, he would have been annoying. I would have been annoyed by that person probably.
He'd call you on his road. You'd have to have a rotary phone version of like the show.
We'd be on this.
Otherwise, you
He'd
wouldn't
still
know
be
what
pushing
to-
buttons.
Yeah.
Or
Jesus?
or just wear a helmet during the interview for every time you face palm. Or
Yeah.
Oh god.
You have any thoughts on the late pastor? And I use the term lately.
Oh man, no, yeah, he was a ridiculous person. I don't know. There's certain people you wonder if they really believe what they were putting out, or if, I don't know, man, because he was just so gung ho about it, and he didn't listen to anything else. I don't know. I bet you that man was probably not a believer. He probably didn't.
You
believe
think
half the
so?
shit that came out of his mouth.
I think the other way. I think he was actually one of the true blue believers.
You think so?
I think a guy like Joel Osteen doesn't believe, right?
Joel, yeah, no, that guy, no
There's
way.
no way, right?
No
He's
way.
a grifter. There's no freaking way he's a grifter. But I think Pat Robertson probably did.
You think
know,
so? I don't know. I think he liked money more. I think he
Oh,
liked money
oh,
more.
there's no
I
doubt.
think he liked money, but there's been
I'm
a lot
very
of times where
curious how much she was worth when he did.
it was 100 million. Is at least 100 million was his net worth, but his ministry was like much bigger.
$110 million. Holy fuck me.
That's
Wow,
ridiculous.
that's a lot of money.
I think that people do know technically that that they're gaslighting themselves, but at the same time they feel there's like a duty to gaslight themselves. You know what I mean? So it's like half and half. It's like sort of lying, but it's also like thinking. You know what I mean? Like you know how the
Can't
people
stop now. I've gone
rationalize.
too far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some cost.
Yeah, I've met enough Christians in my life, though. Like not all by far, but like I've met some really out there unhinged Christians that, like Pat Robertson, if whatever comes into their head, it was put there by God. And it's and anything that they think is what God thinks. And so with Pat Robertson, I'm kind of like I'm siding with Kevin. It's like when I listen to Pat Robertson talk, a lot of the stuff just seems like it comes right from the hip. But he says it with such authority or whatever. I think he seriously thinks that it came from God and not just from his inner dark soul or whatever.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
I just wish the internet would have gotten his act together and we could have had a Q conspiracy saying that he will resurrect after 3 days of dying. That would have been beautiful.
Terrifying if it
That would have
been
great.
Well,
We need to get one
technically,
going.
he made 3 predictions for the end of the world, but
Did
that
he?
never happened.
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
one was in '82, another 2007. I might be off a year or two, and then another one more recently. After when Trump lost the election, he said he said that the world was going to end soon because of all the chaos that was from the Democrats and everything. So it's
I remember that. Yeah.
He also said Mitt Romney was going to win too. That didn't happen.
That's right. That's right.
He's so great at these things.
Yeah.
He should retire.
You know, it's almost like nobody can tell the future. Weird.
Into the ground.
Yeah. Almost like they really don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, he imagined it, so it must be divine revelation, right?
He had a feeling.
Oh, no.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
That's how it
So,
works.
Mike, when you do your show and you have all these guests there, I mean, there's probably some terms that come back around that I've heard this 1,000 times. What's the most annoying thing you always have to come back on to for some of these guests? What's the thing that, oh God, if I have to hear this argument one more time.
Man, no, it's funny because a lot of them do tend to follow the same route because the Christians have their same thing and they go to the original sin and they have their points they make. So I try and stay away from them. But the one they always bring back is, and it's their defense for most everything, is you don't know the mind of God. Ugh. Well, no shit. I mean, obviously, we don't know the mind of Thanos. We don't know the mind of all these other fictional characters and why they did those things. It's called storytelling. And it's very frustrating. And it's like the God's drowning children. Well, we can't know the mind of God. What? You don't think that's bad? Well, he has his reasons. We can't. I can't stand that one. I think
all
that's
the cats, all the puppies, all the kitty cats, everything. And you're just like, what did the 1-day-old baby do?
but yet they can't. But yet they can't handle not knowing where the universe came from. Like I think that's so uncomfortable. Yes. They can say that they don't know about that. It can't do that.
That's also not the author of confusion. So
that's one really obvious. It's not the author of confusion, but like, how many denominations are there? How many doctrines, interpretations? Calvin and what? I
think somebody got something wrong.
Yeah.
Like the Holy Spirit is an author. He's messing it up because he's lying to everybody, and they're all.
God doesn't create confusion when you hear that from the First Baptist Church, and then you cross the street into the Second Baptist Church.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no confusion here whatsoever.
Like we disagreed on a verse.
So. Well, I mean, how do you know it's not God just confusing everybody anyways because he wants certain people to go to hell? I mean, there's so many different aspects you can take these things. In the Bible, God hardens people's hearts. He sends them delusions. He sends wrong prophets delusions. I mean, it's ridiculous. The whole Christianity, the whole Bible. I mean, the more you dive into it, the more ridiculous it gets, and the more they can't answer the questions for it.
Yes.
Well, it's not so much like the more you dive into the Bible, I find is not so much the ridiculousness. It's the fact that you start to realize it's an evolving storyline. That like you got like a ancient polytheistic religion that that becomes like monotheistic, that then starts adopting dualism from from other religions, and then it starts getting into a little bit of a light enlightenment or messianic crap or whatever. Then you get into the Romans taking the religion and adding all their pagan crap and beliefs to it. And then even after the scriptures that we still use occurred, there's a whole bunch of myths and stories or whatever that just shows that the religion just keeps on changing and changing. And Christians today, it's like they're programmed to believe that that it's the same today as it was like 2,000 and 8,000 years ago, when it's like the religion is no longer recognizable to what it once was. And if something is true, it should be consistent. It shouldn't be changing all the time. But that's my take.
On that same thread, do you ever get like arguments that are like, hey, this fulfilled prophecy, like the 4 kingdoms and Daniel and shit? You know what I mean? But
no, I blow off all the prophecies because they're all bullshit. I mean, I don't really, I can dive into each one. It takes too much time and work and I mean, but they're all bullshit. We found out they're all bullshit. It could take 10 minutes to research it. I'll tell you the same thing. Yeah. So I just bypass that. And just
it becomes an impossible gish gallop, doesn't it?
Right. There's so many.
I just love the one the one I like to go to when they talk about prophecies. Yeah, like the one, when they prophesied the Messiah would be named Emmanuel. Yeah, Jesus. No, Jesus. Emmanuel. Yeah, Jesus.
No.
They call him that too. In that one verse, though. That's the only place.
But that's the thing. To make this fit, most Christians will say, well, Emmanuel means, I think he believes like I am or something like that. Or that's what it means. Jesus says, I am. Therefore, see, that's how he's Emmanuel.
But I've said I am.
My name's Emmanuel too, because I am a person.
If you're of a certain age like myself, there was a porn line that was called Emmanuel goes to this and Emmanuel goes to that. So.
Emmanuel does Texas. No.
I always remember the one that messed me up for the longest time was the 4 kingdoms, where it was like the big statue of clay and it was like represent all these kingdoms, right? And then it said like in there in the same verse, it's like, oh, that represented this kingdom and that came to pass. And they all point to that, like all those things, like that was written before those kingdoms happened, like the different like Roman and all that type of kingdoms. And it turns out like it's in 2 different languages because they went back and added the interpretations after the fact. and made it. But today, like Troy was saying, the Christians don't know it's been curated. So they think all that was written at the same time before all this kingdom's fulfilled prophecy. There we go. It's interesting how that works.
It is interesting. They do have the old material to write the new material. So yes, we can fulfill prophecy by just going and writing it in.
Yeah,
I'm going to prophesize that Spider-Man's going to marry Mary Jane one day.
Universe somewhere it'll happen.
And it's not just the prophecies, but some of our most favorite adages from the Bible, like who's free of sin, cast the first stone.
Yes.
It's like that got added to the Bible around 900 CE, like long after the original books were there. And it's like, and the only excuse that the apologists can make for this is like, well, they probably just copied it from an older text. Okay, where's the older text? Oh, it's been lost years ago. But it's but obviously the monk had it, or he wouldn't have wrote it in there. It's not like he figured like this is an important message that Christians should know, and just added it. But it's
it's funny when. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, what was that verse where he said, "Don't forget to bring my jacket or my cloak or something"? He at the end of the letter, he left that in there. Don't forget to bring my cloak or jacket, because that must have been original. That must have been
yeah.
Don't forget my jacket. And dry clean only. Dry clean only.
One fabric.
It's funny because Troy reminds me of that line there. Let he who's not without sin cast the first stone. And I remember seeing this comic book. And there's this image of Jesus in that one panel that he's pointing to this woman and he's preaching. Let him who is without sin not cast the first stone, blah, blah, blah. And then the next panel, there's this giant boulder on this that squished this woman. He says, "Come on, Dad." It's like,
that's awesome.
Oh, Mike, that's awesome. So, when you do your show like that, and it's kind of, some people would say, "What's the point? What's the point of doing the Bible says what?" I mean, you're going to argue with Christians, and they're in their things there. Have you seen some of your guests in the past kind of like have a moment of reflection, plant the seed? Has that been successful?
Not that I know of. I know there's a couple of guests where I can see that I'm starting to get things through to them. Like this is starting to make sense, but then they push right back, But I know later on they're going to rethink that. They're going to go back and revisit that conversation. So that is definitely one reason I keep going. You never know. That one person, I might get somebody out of this religion. I don't know. That'd be a cool thing. Waiting for that to happen.
No, I was just going to say, like a lot of people are only taught to think a certain way. So when you have shows showing different points of view, different perspectives of the text, critical questions that they never thought to ask or were allowed to ask. And, it's not going to change someone's life right away. But at the same time, it does create a little bit of enlightenment or whatever to at least give opportunity to start questioning what you've been led to believe. But
some of these people, they've never even heard of these questions or even thought of these verses. Heard of the verses, thought of these questions. So that's always unique and interesting as well. I do find that interesting that they love their Bible, they love their Christianity, but they've never picked up and read the Old Testament. They never thought about why the flood would be a bad idea. They never revisited the original sin and looked at the curses and how ridiculous they are, over the top God's been, the irrationalness to it. I bring that to light and kind of show them, and it's interesting their reaction to each one. Some people lash out, some people will just like dance around things, but it's unique. It's very unique opportunity.
Deep do you dive in there with your prospective guests? I mean, we can always have these conversations on superficial Bible verses that we've all heard, but I mean, some of the stuff is much more obscure, right? I mean, you talk to, I think there's a passage in Timothy, for example, that says to get rid of mold, you got to sacrifice a bird and pour blood over the other bird, and use that to wash the mold or shit like that. That gets like pretty deep into the Bible at that point. Do you ever get that deep?
No, well, I mean, I try not to go too deep. I'm a simple guy. I mean, if it's a simple concept, let's go over it. Is he loving? Does what I want to worship him? Is this true? Does this seem accurate? Stuff like that. Just basic stuff. So not too much into those things. I will dive in. Like right now, I'm kind of going back over the original curse, and I'm realizing that man's curse is weak. I mean, it's not really just for him. Women's curse has something for her. The snake curse has something for him. But the man's curse is the ground is going to be thorny. I mean, shit. Well, everybody has to work the ground.
Blackberry bushes. You've never cut blackberry bushes, I can tell.
But the curses themselves are so pointless now. Like, we have lawnmowers. We have machines that can remote control and do your yard and do the crops and everything. And then birth, it's not even painful. We got the drugs, so you don't even have to feel it. I don't know.
Drugs
God's
are
curses
amazing.
are so ridiculous. The more you
Sorry, epidurals are
Go
amazing. Go
Hell
drugs.
the more you dive into each one of these things, the more ridiculous it gets. And every once in a while, I'll just like get a wild hair and start diving into things. And it's like, well, shit, that's ridiculous. I need to talk about that. Let me ask the Christian. What are they doing?
One of the lines I always liked is one that was used by our friend Seth Andrews. When he talks about it, says, "Why is God using something as inefficient as a Bible?" It says, "When my elderly mother can send an email across the world in a matter of seconds, yet somehow we have to refer back to a 1,000-year-old book out of nowhere." So you think God would be able to actually communicate in a faster, better way? And I said, you know what? That's so true.
No, it's perfect. What are you talking about? This is perfect.
No, God only talks to a specific people. And it's the worst game of telephone ever because they're all getting a slightly different message. They're creating a belief system around that slightly different message. But God likes it that way.
I think the dangers with modern religion, though, is so many Christians think that the Bible is supposed to be taken literally, or if they interpret something a certain way, then that's God's message for them. When in reality, prior to 200-300 years ago, the Bible was allegorical. It was a case where it's these were stories for you to read, think about, reflect on, and see how it affects you, like an inward focus. So it's when you do something like that, then all of a sudden these stories, they're not as nonsensical because you realize that the fact that, oh no, the stories are just being told this way because they're trying to emphasize a philosophical question or point or whatever. But nowadays, it's like I said, it's it's supposed to be literal. So it's whatever theological take you have on a verse, then that's supposed to be God's word, whether or not you took the time to properly study what the verse means. So, but that's probably something that you see a lot on your show, though, right? People making up their own definitions for Bible verses, or no?
Man, yes, no, they change things completely all the time. Even the smallest word, they'll have to change it just to make their thing make sense or make it less bad. My favorite one there was this guy I was talking to. I said, "Who sent the rainwater to drown the people?" And he would not say God. He refused. People sent the rain. Who opened the windows of heaven? People drowned themselves. Oh my God, man!
They brought it on themselves, and God had nothing to do with it.
But it says in their fucking book that he sent the water to kill all the people because he was like, I need to do a do-over. I forgot to save the game.
Technically, I think it says that he opens the floodgates, which makes perfect. So it's it makes sense if you're familiar with ancient Jewish or Hebrew cosmology or whatever, because in their world we're inside of a bubble with heaven, and around us is a whole bunch of celestial water that he just let into the earth, and magic space water that he poured into the earth and poured back out again.
Also by Aquafina.
Yeah. I mean, every god worth his salt has a floodgate. Okay, come on. You have to have that. Be a cool god.
Oh, Troy is absolutely correct. It makes a lot more sense when you believe the period it was written. But today, in the 21st century, it's fun. It's funny to see. It's almost like we should put a gauge on the Bible and see what percentage is allegorical and what percentage is literal. And you see that allegory number constantly rising as science marches forward. And all of a sudden, the Garden of Eden didn't really exist. It's a metaphor for, Adam and Eve didn't really exist. All of a sudden, this becomes more and more of a metaphor.
Well, it's inconsistent. It depends who they're talking to. It seems like, it'll be a metaphor one day, and then another time with a different discussion with a different person, it's now literal, and it's just
word of God. You have to follow this.
It's
so when they come on my
living.
show, he didn't mean that. He didn't mean that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like they're defending Trump. He didn't mean that. Okay, that's not what he meant.
Well, or they do some apologetic bullshit. They said well, we don't follow the Old Testament anymore. We follow the New Testament.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. The Old Testament is canon. You cannot toss it out just because there's your God, is being a big fucking asshole. I'm sorry.
Right.
But they're like, well, Jesus is redeeming his father, which is him. But I'm like, didn't Jesus say he was coming with a sword though?
And to follow the law, not change it.
I am not here to rewrite the law, blah blah blah. So I'm just like, I'm like, that doesn't hold any water. I don't know. And then they claim to know the mind of God because they know.
Yeah, they do.
They say we can't know, but they know because their interpretation of whatever been told was just whatever interpretation somebody told them.
Because their invisible friend said so. That's why.
Right.
Well, it comes back to what I was saying before. If you realize that religion has changed, evolved, it's then these differences make more sense. But if you're trying to lump it all in together, it's just one contradiction after another because that's not how religion changes over time. Just look at the amount of how much religion has changed within the last 30, 40 years. It's like you go back 30, 40 years ago and, God wasn't your buddy Christ or imaginary friend in the sky. He was a powerful, badass boss or whatever that you did not piss off or he was going to get you. And it's but people were getting tired of that messaging. Along come the evangelicals with their buddy Christ or whatever, and then the whole characteristics of God completely changed just within the last 3-4 decades. It's we went from rock and roll being Satan's jukebox to every church having a rock band.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, if we see that many changes just within the last few decades, what about the last couple centuries or the millennia?
And I had no idea Jesus was a Republican too. When I was a kid, Jesus was really a Republican. No, he is. That's for sure.
I mean, he really likes guns. Jesus
he loves
them. He loves them.
Because
that's his sword now. That's his sword. It's a gun. I'm
just a warning: if a Christian asks you what kind of gun Jesus would own, don't say nail gun.
I'm definitely stealing. That's it. It's happening. I was in a church the other day, last couple of weeks. I did a live debate in San Jose. And in that church,
I actually catch on fire.
It was great. It was a lot of fun, actually. I got to say what I wanted, and they just sat there and listened. It was great. It was a whole church full of people.
Wow.
And I said something about the final nail in the cross, so to speak, was blah, 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 blah. And I kept that in my speech, and I left it there, and nobody slaughtered me. It was really weird. They didn't burn me at the stake or nothing. But they don't like those things. But it's so true, though. The final nail in the cross was reading the Bible. Really, just
it's whenever they bring up crucifixion nails, I always remember that there are 29 official crucifixion nails in circulation in different churches around the world. So it's
no, Troy, you don't understand. Jesus was very slippery. They had to nail him all over the place.
No, I'm just thinking that's proof that the Great Spaghetti Monster is real. If they need that many nails,
all those limbs.
There's a noodle. There's a noodle. There's a noodle.
My favorite thing floating around from Jesus, though, is his foreskin.
The 7 one.
Supposedly. Yeah. That's the best.
Why would anyone want that?
I gotta go see Jesus' foreskin.
Holy foreskin.
Okay, so this is why I don't understand that. I mean, I'm a bit of a mythicist, as a lot of people know, and I always come back to the idea: how come we don't have any artifacts of Jesus? We don't have his carpenter tools. We don't have the table he made, anything like that. Somehow we have 7 foreskins. We have 7 foreskins of Jesus, but we don't have his pair of sandals. I don't get that. That makes no fucking sense to me whatsoever.
So I covered
the tools. Yeah. We've learned because he would just stretch boards. It was magic. You don't need carpenter tools with your magic.
That's right.
A nail gun in his fingers.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple of weeks ago, I did a Syriac infancy gospel of where or how the foreskin was actually collected. But has anybody ever told you where it comes from, or
I don't remember if I've heard it.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, it's basically it's the when Jesus was born, the nursemaid took his foreskin or whatever and saved it and then gave it to a pharmacist, and then that's how it's kind of funny because like you read this old gospel and it's just one infomercial after another of some sort of artifact that of like from Jesus or something else, and it's like. And if we think today that the church is just out to get money, you know, you look at the early church, it was all about making money. Like it was just one artifact after another. And churches were like, well, if you have like a saint's foreskin or a saint's skull or Jesus's washcloth or whatever, it's that makes your church especially holy. And people that pray there become especially saved, and it's like, the church is full of these ridiculous scams, like for the longest time, and you know people don't mention that from history ever, so like people don't think about it, but it's
still a scam today. You go to Israel. Yeah. You go to Israel today, you find Jesus' tomb somehow. They don't know where he was resurrected, don't know when he died or when he was born, but somehow they found his tomb, apparently. Come on.
Listen,
well, you know how all that came to be.
The Ark of the Covenant is somewhere in India where some old guy sits in front of it, but you can't go inside and look at the Ark of the Covenant.
It's surrounded by snakes.
A warehouse somewhere?
Damn. No.
All I know is top people are working on it.
I'm very curious. Do you find these people like on podcasts? Do you just like go searching on the interwebs and go, who are some prominent people that have Bible podcasts or whatever? Like, where do you find these people?
There are services out there, and I do belong to a couple of them. One is called Podmatch, and the other one is called Matchmaker FM. And both of these places, they have people with podcasts, and they just switch as guests and whatnot. Some of them get paid for and whatnot. That's why, you know, patrons. Thank you, patrons.
Okay, that's really...
But yeah, no, I mean, that's where I find most of them. And whenever I feel that I'm running out of material from those places, new people join. So I've got new people to come on, you know, guests that want to come on. And then I do find some that talk to me. Hey, you know, I've listened to your podcast and blah, blah, blah. I'd like to come on. My favorite ones, though, are the ones that contact me after reading the word Bible. And, oh, you've got such a great podcast. I want to come on and share my book about Jesus and blah, blah, blah. You have no idea what you're talking about right now. Okay, come on the show. Come on the show.
It's like
10 seconds into the show. What?
It's like, oh, my sweet summer child. You do not know where you're getting into.
Come on in with my horns.
When it gets really, really low on the guest list, then he starts calling us and says, hey, guys, want to come on our show?
I need some right at the valley. If you know what I mean.
I think that would be fun. We all put on our Kirk beards, and
that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I like this.
We would just all be like, oh, okay, the Bible's bullshit. Well,
or just after the first questions, you guys become atheists and turn your lives over and blah, blah.
That's right, exactly. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Yeah, you know, and maybe I have had believed in nonsense. Okay, well, now I'm an atheist.
Mike's always been a bit of a fan for us. He especially likes some of the skits we've done over the years.
Oh man, you guys are awesome.
Oh yeah, I think one of your favorites was that Jeopardy skit. They kept on. Oh, yeah, I can't even go to explain it.
I gotta write that. I actually forgot about the Jeopardy skit. That was awesome.
Donald Trump. It never happened for 500, Pat.
Exactly. Oh, Mike. So what's on the horizon there for the Bible Says What podcast? What's coming down the pipe there? You're chugging along, and you got lots of listeners. You're becoming very popular. Which, you know, congratulations.
Thanks. It's getting out there, slowly but surely. I do have a TikTok video that's 500,000 views. I thought that was pretty crazy.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
But it's mostly Christians just telling me that.
On the interwebs.
Thank you to Spider-Man. Praise Spider-Man. It's all the web stuff has got to be from him. So it's all his blessings.
Everybody gets
So is it something like this? Is that how we worship him? It's like,
That's how it is. Yes. This is
So
from Michael.
devil signs.
But I think you don't know how true you are. There's probably somebody out there that says, the devil sign that is Spider-Man shooter. Spider-Man's a devil. There's got to be one of those.
Gotta be.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, I've actually seen that one. Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's the Illuminati sign. Yeah.
Oh no.
oh no, really?
This means I love you in like sign language. Come
Yeah,
on,
it is.
guys. I mean, this is perfect. Spider-Man loves you.
Well, that's how you know metal is from the devil, because everybody's like doing this at metal shows, and they're like,
Yeah, rock on.
So,
Yeah.
I always say
Spider-Man
my-
All I know is Spider-Man wears red, and you know who else wears red? Satan.
Satan.
Santa Claus.
Spider-Man likes to shoot all his sticky love to you, and when I do it, I'm a pervert, but Spider-Man does it for some reason.
Sticky
So
white
sticky.
stuff.
Yeah.
That would work.
When Spider-Man shoots sticky white stuff, he's a hero. When a Catholic priest does it, he's a monster.
Oh,
When I do it at Trader Joe's, all of a
Too far?
sudden I got a problem.
That frozen fish department, I tell you.
Oh my god! Okay, so anyway, the question
what else do you
was.
have going on, Michael, with your podcast?
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
Poor
question
Michael, he's
originally
never coming
was-
back.
Try to reel back.
The question originally was, what's coming up on the Michael Wiseman podcast? God.
This week we have, just today came out episode 109, I believe it's called, and it has a apologist who's been teaching apologists. Just see, what's that word? I don't know that word. He's been teaching that for over 20 years, and then he came on my show. And yeah, no, he has nothing. I don't understand. What's he been teaching for 20 years? I don't get it. It's really fun. You should watch it, though. It's a shorter one.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to watch it.
But after that, I've got a couple of them in the bag here. One of them is a psychic lady who calls herself Mojo Medium. That was an interesting conversation.
Michael, you and I have talked. I used to work at a psychic center, a psychic education center. Oh, yeah, I got stories.
When she loses her connection, does she lose her mojo? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Well, I bring up good questions apparently, but my problem, my worst thing, I guess, would be when the guests come on and they just spend 20 minutes giving personal testimonies. It's like, well, this happened to me and this happened and this happened. I can't defute any of that. But what I can tell you is, why are people doing it and not your invisible friend? And that's, I find the most frustrating is all these personal, and they think it's so convincing. I don't understand how you can think that's so convincing. Well, God walked in front of me and gave me a towel. It's like, what? I mean, how am I supposed to expect? Do you have a video? Is there any kind of anything?
The one episode I listened to where that woman had lost her child, and that was really hard because she that she was trying to make sense out of it through believing in a God, and that God made this happen to me to, blah, blah, blah. It happened for a reason. And I, my heart, I couldn't, your instinct when you hear bullshit is that to make fun of it, but I felt so genuinely bad for her, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And I could tell you were struggling too, because
it was really tough.
Yeah,
really tough.
Because you're just like, oh, I don't want to take this away from you, but I don't think that's serving you either. I think you need therapy.
I think that's the same one where she was telling me that God killed her child so she would be closer to God.
Yes. I did listen to that.
And that
one.
broke
Wow,
my
yeah.
heart. As a parent, it broke my heart. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the tough ones. And in the middle of the conversation, those kinds of conversations, I'm thinking to myself, should I be doing this? Should I be having this conversation with you? I mean, do I really want to try and convince you that what you're talking about is bullshit? I mean,
no, this person
it's tough with someone like that.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah. No,
But she was so far with the God killed her kid with that. I had to say something.
It made me so sad. It was just
It's
because like
horrible.
it's very disturbing. And my heart goes out to her, and I really wanted her to get professional help and not go to a pastor. Like she needs grief counseling. She needs to get, real help. And it makes me super sad. It does. Because this is what religion does. It gets us grubby fingers into all this shit, and you can't learn to mourn properly. You can't learn to let that go. It has to be for a reason. Instead of the world is fucked up and it's random, and sometimes really horrible things happen.
It falls exactly what we were talking earlier about Pat Robertson. I think it was Troy or Brently that basically said, that time where this person was ill, and then Pat Robertson gave him the advice that somebody in their family was
her baby died. It was me. Her baby died, and she's calling him to Pat Robinson to make sense of it. And then he says that the baby was most likely killed from a demon, and that's because someone in her family had practiced witchcraft. And it's but that kind of segues into what I was about to say, is how like a lot of people will need religion as a coping mechanism like that. Yeah. But what they don't realize that even though it's helping them with their grief, it's there's a whole bunch of toxic crap that comes along with it that does far more. That's like far more poisonous than it is or far more of a poison than it is of a remedy. It's because like in yours, like in the situation you're talking about, it's like, okay, even if she does accept that her baby dying was to strengthen her faith. Well, what else is that faith that she's now clinging to make sense of her life? What else is attached to that faith? You have like anti-trans rhetoric. You have like binary mindsets that unfairly judges people. You have self-loathing of how you're a miserable sinner and you're worthless without the use of God. And it's like you have like something that seems like a remedy, but it's attached to all this poison. And the sad thing is the church uses that to bring people into their flock, and it's I don't know. I just think that's really sad. But it's,
way to make everybody depressed. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Way to go, Troy.
Let's go back to
we are a comedy podcast. I didn't bring the mood down, but it just got me thinking about, because that was one episode. Because usually I'm yelling at my radio.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it. And I love the conversations that you have with people, but that particular one, I felt really bad for you. I was just like, because I know that you're a kind person, and I was just like, oh, I'm like, what do you do in that situation? So I felt bad for both of you.
I didn't even know she had lost to it. Like, it happened or came up in the middle of the conversation. It was like, shit, well, now I have to address that, and here we go.
Not to be empathetic. God damn it.
God damn it.
I wanted to sit here and prove how your God is silly, but okay.
Fine. We'll take a serious note this time.
Do you feel your style of interview would be could be labeled as a sort of a street epistemology, or do you really think that your show is more of an entertainment value only?
Interesting. Well, I have heard people say
these kind of questions on here, do you?
Those are great.
Kevin's got all the good questions today.
He does, always. I get from people that the show's helped them, and that's weird to me because I just do this because it's fun and I enjoy it. Not really, I guess. Well, 100% for the entertainment value, I guess, because everybody's got to listen to it. But it is helpful for some people, so I'm going to continue doing it that way and doing my conversations the way I do them. And again, you go from episode 1 of The Bible Says What to episode 209. I am not that person in episode 1. I'm no longer asking those questions, interrupting people like I used to. I mean, you grow as a person. You can't do it for 5 years and not learn something about yourself and fix it. But yeah, no, I mean, I forgot what the question was at this point. But
the question, in other words, was: is the show and your premise and your technique a proper.
Oh yeah. Epistemology, street epistemology. I guess it's my own. Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I take a little bit of what works and I just kind of go with it. If I ask a question and it's too harsh, or if it's too fast or too slow, anyways, it's a balance. You got to get used to it. So yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit of street epistemology, a little bit of my own flavor.
I know myself personally. I prefer like the casual conversations where people are actually being honest with each other. Because when it gets combative, like people start like sticking to tropes, to like adages, to like gish gallops, and it's nothing is really being said. It's just people tossing to what they've been taught are arguments.
Now, I've definitely had those episodes. I've definitely been there. There was one I can think of in particular. I had no guests, so I had to find one online, and that was a bad idea. And then I also had a few drinks that night, which was also a bad idea. So the whole entire conversation is a bit odd. And I warned everybody ahead of time. This is what happened. This is what it is. And I'm just going to have fun, enjoy. So
let me get this straight. You had no guests, and
no guests.
Even then, he still didn't call us. He still went on there. This is how little he thinks of us at this point.
No, stop it, no.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I was kind of screwed. I had
what
3
are we
people
talk
cancel.
about? We're going to go on there. We're going to his podcast and say like, "Yep, nope, Bible's silly."
Totally agree.
No, I do interviews with other atheist contributors.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Podcast
creators.
I do those.
Yeah, well, if we went on Mike's podcast, it'd be nothing but a half hour of dick jokes.
That's what happened the last time when you guys were on.
That's right. Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. The quick question: if people want to find out more about your show and maybe also, if they're getting new in their non-belief journey and all that, what would you recommend to them?
Oh my God! Read the Bible. Open it up. Read it if you're questioning the Bible. 100%. No, me. You can find me at thebiblesaySwhat.com or leftatthevalley.com. I mean, the Bible says what? I'm also on YouTube, TikTok, and all those fun places.
Fantastic. Mike, of course, as usual. As per usual, my friend, I gotta have you say hi. This is Mike Wiseman of The Bible Says What, and I took a left at the valley.
Hi, this is Mike Wiseman. Oh man, see, I was going to say you left at the valley. Just screwed me up.
That worked always just
of left the valley, and this is.
Don't worry, we'll totally forget to edit that.
I hope so. Keep it in. I love it. I love all my scripts. Hi, this is Mike Wiseman from The Bible Says What, and I took a left at the valley.
Proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it.
Well, what do you think? Thank you so much for our guests for being here on the show, and thank you to my co-hosts, Brently, Troy, Dawn, and Helen, and thank you for listening. You can follow us at leftatthevalley.ca. You can send us an email at leftattvalley@outlook.com. You can find us pretty much anywhere. Just go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look for Left at the Valley. Either the YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It helps us and helps others find the show. And just pass the show on to a friend. We're always looking for new listeners. And if you ever feel so benevolent, become a patron of the show. Go to patreon.com/LETV, where patrons get an unedited version of the show, video version of the show, and maybe even a t-shirt. So help us grow the show. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.